Hello, and welcome to this first introductory lesson on the Office 365 management environment, in which we will try to understand what it is about. Office 365, as you can see on this slide, is a world of applications that interact with each other. This course will not focus on just one of these applications, but will concentrate solely on the management environment, which is the prerequisite for being able to use these applications. These applications are also designed to be used individually. Used individually, they would not give their best. That is, they would not be used to their full potential. Because these applications are used to their full potential from the perspective of business organization, they only interact with each other. Used individually, they would not give their best. That is to say, they would not be used to their full potential. Because these applications are used to their full potential from the perspective of business organization, they only interact with each other. Because these applications, as you can read in these few lines in your language, by interacting with each other, produce business organizational solutions superior to those that would be obtained by using them individually. I use these arrows to show our applications. They can interact with each other. For example, we use a PowerPoint file that can be shared on OneDrive. Once shared on OneDrive, for example, another member of the organization, or even an external user, could make a modification to it. The previous version of the file would be preserved, and the file would be modified with the name, day, and time of the person who modified it. In the same way, this file could be shared in Teams among the group members. Once shared in Teams, since when a group is opened in Teams, a OneDrive environment is also created for this Teams. The file will automatically go to OneDrive as well. When, for example, a plan is opened in Planner, an Office 365 group and a SharePoint site are automatically created. When you open a plan in Planner and also a SharePoint site, an environment is automatically created in OneDrive, as well as an environment in Outlook with a shared inbox for this SharePoint site or this team. If we have opened a team in Teams and a shared calendar among the group members who will belong to this team in Teams, or who will be members of this SharePoint site. So with these few words, you will have already understood that it is a world of applications, to be used in the best way by making them interact with each other. Before doing all this, however, it is necessary to understand how it works. And that is the objective of the course, the Office 365 management environment. So we will see how to add members, how to add guests, simple contacts, how to form groups based on members and guests. Used individually, they would not give their best. That is to say, they would not be used to their full potential, because these applications are used to their full potential from the perspective of business organization. They only interact with each other. It is necessary to understand how the Office 365 management environment works. Also, in terms of the permissions that the administrator can grant to individual users within the organization, because this will determine what members, guests will be able to do within individual applications. In Teams, in SharePoint, in Planner, for example, one could grant permission to an individual as a SharePoint administrator, and obviously this individual will be able to do a lot of things within the SharePoint site they administer. But for example, they will not be able to grant the power to modify files to a guest if this guest or member is not a SharePoint administrator. So for this person, if it is necessary from a professional point of view to be able to collaborate on file modifications, it is necessary for the SharePoint administrator to also go through the administrator. Because the administrator grants this member or guest the power of SharePoint administrator. At that moment, the SharePoint administrator of this site will be able to grant them the power to modify the files. So this extremely important premise is actually which forms the basis for understanding how to better use Office 365. And I repeat, This will be a course not on these individual applications, and not even just on one of them, but on the administration environment. We will see a bit how these applications can function within Office 365. So here's the administration environment, which we will see in depth by clicking here. In the administration, we arrive at this environment, from which we will handle all the topics I mentioned earlier, which will be the subject of the course, thus users, guests, contacts, group and team management, the creation of shared mailboxes, and much more. Once this is done, we can say that the administration is up and running. Now we are forming a team in Teams, as I have done here in the case of the formation. The formation of all these teams, which may or may not be linked, which constitutes the basis for being able to understand how to better use Office 365. And I repeat, this will be a course not on these individual applications, and not even just on one of them, but on the administration environment. We will see a bit how these applications can function within Office 365. So here is the administration environment, which we will see in depth by clicking here. In the administration, we arrive at this environment, from which we will handle all the topics I mentioned earlier, which will be the subject of the course. Thus, the users, the guests, the contacts, the management of groups and teams, the creation of shared mailboxes, and much more. Once this is done, we can say that the administration is up and running. Now we are forming a team in Teams, as I have done here in the case of the formation. The formation of all these teams, which may or may not be linked to SharePoint sites or to plans in Plenaire. Here, as you can see in Teams, it will be possible to collaborate by sharing files. It will be possible to collaborate by exchanging messages in the group or individual messages between group members. It will be possible to automatically start a video conference or schedule one. Just like in the planner, it will be possible to make a plan to achieve our goal, which can be entrepreneurial, but as in this case, it can also be academic. The marketing of Tuscan wines in America for a legal study. The organization of the criminal procedure. What should we follow in court? The Samba course for children, in the case of a recreational activity or something else. Here with Plenaire, we can plan all our activities. Here is the SharePoint environment, where, for example, we can go see one of the SharePoint sites that have been created here. This one, for example, is a SharePoint site related to the battles of World War II, which has a plan, as you could see in Plenaire, and which will obviously also be a team in Teams. Next, we have the Power Apps environment, where we will be able to create applications that can then be used, also on smartphones or tablets, as well as on desktops, to perform many business functions. For example, with this application, I was able to assign activities to group members in Plenaire who are also part of the plan from the smartphone very quickly, or who can then send an email very quickly. When we open a SharePoint site or a plan in Plenaire, we can see that an environment is also created in OneDrive, where all the group's files will be shared. When we open a SharePoint site or a plan in Plenaire, we can see that an environment is also created in OneDrive, where all the group's files will be shared. And from this environment, for example, we could say that we want to edit this file. We want to share it with a specific person so that they can then make modifications, which will remain independent of the previous file. Thus, there will be the file in which they made the modifications, and the old one to compare with the modifications made. We have the Outlook environment, which is created automatically. When we open a SharePoint site, or when we create a plan in Planaire, here a shared calendar is automatically created among the group members, among the members who are part of the SharePoint site, or part of a determined plan, or part of a team in Teams. For example, when we create a plan in Planaire, all the activities that we insert into the plan will also go into the to-do list, where we can add other activities that have nothing to do with the plans. For example, in the calendars, we could synchronize the calendar of one of the plans. For example, here, the marketing of Tuscan wines in America is a plan in the planner. But I made sure that the plan's calendar appears in a different color, also in Outlook, in order to add other activities. And so I can see, as long as that, Office 365 extracts from the plan, and Planaire automatically places it in the Outlook calendar. And then we also have OneNote and obviously other applications. I showed you the main ones. We also have OneNote, which opens automatically when, for example, we create a SharePoint site or a plan in Planaire. Here I created this plan where students conduct research on World War II. And in OneNote, this notebook was automatically created where all the members of this plan, the battles of World War II, can take notes that may be useful for the research they need to do in this case, or for the business activity to be carried out at that specific moment. So as you could see, Office 365 is a potentially very useful environment for managing a commercial activity, but also a non-commercial activity. However, before starting to use all these applications, which, as I repeat, will not be the subject of this course, it is necessary to see how to administer the Office 365 environment, how to grant permissions to users and guests that we have created, how to create Office 365 groups, how to first create the architecture of our organization in Office 365, which is very important, as well as creating shared mailboxes tomorrow. So let's say that this presentation and introduction lesson